welcome back to part 5. Today we're going to be working on the clothes, and so it's going to feel like big progress because the entire canvas will have some paint on it now at the end of this session. Depending on how far we get, we can start making some more final decisions about the background. And that's about all we're going to focus on this time. We're not necessarily going to get the clothing finalized. We'll get it, 60 or 70% of the way there, and the next time we'll start making more final decisions. Do you have any idea what color you want to make his clothing?
Like a beige.
Like a beige?
Yeah, maybe accents of blue or red.
Okay. Like maybe a raw linen tunic and a colored shawl or cloak or whatever?
Yeah.
I'm thinking blue or red?
Maybe. I don't know.
Blue and red?
Maybe.
Well, we're going to have to make a decision.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Definitely a beige.
Okay, well, we can get started with that and think about the color you want to use next as you go. I'm thinking I might give him a green cloak.
Ooh, that would be
Like
nice.
really, really dark, earthy green.
That would be nice.
Partly because you never see that.
Yes, true.
And doctrinally, scripturally, whatever. It's like, we often see Jesus in a red cloak, which is more the post-atonement thing. And so
That's true.
if I were making a post-atonement or post-mortal ministry portrait, I would probably give him a red cloak. But
Since it's on his mortal.
yeah, during that, I kind of like he refers to himself as the green tree in some passages,
Yeah.
or the living, and so I kind of like mixing it up that way sometimes. So I'm thinking that's the way I'm going to go.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to make it any color you wish. We have the paints to give you options. And so, yeah, let's get started.
Yeah.
Do you have any preferences?
Maybe a flat head.
Kind of like you used it last time?
Yes. Thank you.
You want a bigger one?
Yes.
You want one in the middle?
Sure.
You want a stupidly large one? The way I work is like the more value changes you make, the more you can start to get a realistic look. So if you have 7 or 8 or 9 or infinite gradations between values, you get more and more complex images. As a starting point for like the initial thing on the fabric, like we're doing today, I'm aiming to put down 3 values. But when the edges of those 3 values get blended together, you get values 4 and 5 and 6.
Yes.
It's been a couple lessons ago, but I described how I'll put down colors in places that are darker than I want, but I intend to go over them later, which will lighten them up. And that's what I'm doing here with these lines for wrinkles and creases in the fabric. Right now, these are much darker than they're going to end up, but I intend to overpaint them. Here's something else. You may have noticed this. So we've got this cast shadow, the way his tunic is opened up at the neck a little bit. The corner of the sides is folded over and it's casting this shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the closer to the thing that a shadow gets, the crisper the edge is. And the further away in space it goes, the softer the edge gets. And so right up here, close to the thing causing the shadow, I'm going to keep the shadow edge sharper. But as it moves further away and is at the bottom edge, it's going to be softer. Also, like I described last time with the underpainting, and the variations you can get depending on how thinly or thickly you lay down the paint. Because I tend to, load up my brush and then just keep working the surface until there's just nothing left in the brush. I don't keep loading and reloading and reloading with lots and lots of paint. And that's not necessarily a good or bad thing, it's just one of my quirks. But it also means that the longer I work with a single load of paint in the brush, the thinner and lighter the strokes get, or the thinner the paint gets, the lighter the strokes become. And you can get additional plane changes and variations from a single color. Mm-hmm. So these spots where I've got this taupey, kind of yellowy middle brown, when I lay it down thicker, it stays dimmer, and when I spread it thin and the transparency gets to work, it gets lighter and lighter, and I can do that. I can use that deliberately to create the illusion of form. Another thing you can play with that can create some fun illusions is warm versus cool on the same thing. Meaning, if I use a very warm yellowy brown like I have on the tunic, that's giving it very warm type shadows, and then I could contrast that with cool colored highlights. Or we can go in the reverse, and it's very cool, cold gray or black or cool brown shadows and a warm highlight, and that creates some more variety and some more interest. So there's lots of games that can be played. And you see that kind of thing a lot on YouTube videos, podcasts and things where they'll have different colored lights on the person's face. Like the main spotlight is a very cold white, and that's illuminating most of their face, but then there's a very yellowy orange rim light. It's the same game they're playing there. Or blue and red. You've probably seen that. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty extreme example, but it's the same game. Thing to remember with wrinkling fabric is that there's multiple things going on with it. Wrinkles are created, one, because of the surface tension in the fabric, and that's why different fabrics wrinkle differently. The weight of the fabric and the surface tension will create different wrinkles. And so how you depict the wrinkles will give an indication of what type of fabric it is in your painting. But the other thing is the surface tension of the fabric is reacting to what it's on top of. Mm-hmm. So when we're wearing garments, the surface tension is reacting to the anatomy underneath of it. And so we need to be thoughtful about not just making random zigzag wrinkle patterns or something like that, but to remember what the fabric is lying on top of. And so, just like his face catching light, his chest is going to be catching light, his chest muscles. And so they're going to get bigger highlights on the tops of the wrinkles that are laying on top of the chest muscles. And as his body moves away from the light or out of direct orientation with the light source, the tones in the wrinkles will also diminish because they'll be moving into shadow. And this is one of the reasons that creating artwork purely out of our imagination is so difficult, because when we use references like photographs, or if we're painting or drawing from life, we're presented with all of this information. It's actually right there in front of us. We're not having to remember or invent things. We're getting all the data, and we just have to learn how to see it. But when we go off script and start inventing things, well, the only way to make those inventions realistic is if we think of everything. It's one of the things that we see a lot in movies with a lot of CG special effects. It's because the VFX artists either thought of enough things and invented and imitated convincingly enough, or they forgot to think about things, and whether we know it or not, consciously, we pick up on it. We're like, well, that doesn't look right. I don't know what's wrong, but that doesn't look right. And you have to invent, you have to think of everything, and it's really hard to think of everything. Spirit of having to think of everything or not. When I've got my palette laid out like this, I've mixed up the raw umber and white, so I've got this wet pile of that tan color, and now I'm working on the cloak with this greenish color. We've got green umber. It's a color I've only ever seen made by Old Holland. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very dark, very earthy green color. Anyway, I'm not terribly committed to any one particular color for the cloak, although beyond wanting it to be kind of greenish. And so to start adjusting the color, since I've already got this other pile of paint on my palette, I'll start mixing that in. And so it's kind of a mystery, mystery grab bag color. Mm-hmm. And I may love it, I may hate it, I might leave it, I might change it, but it gives me something to react against. Mm-hmm. Again, it's that kind of like, well, what if I mix this with that? What am I going to get? When you mix a color, you can take your time with a palette knife and thoroughly mix the colors together so you get a nice even color to lay down. But since fabric drapery has all these interesting variations going on, if you do as I've done and are not overly careful about thoroughly mixing the colors together, you'll get multicolored streaks as you start to lay it down. Mm-hmm. And because I'm pulling the brush in the direction of the folds and creases, when I do get those little surprising streaks of dark or light, I often just leave them because it just adds to the illusion. It's a little, inject a little unpredictability, release a little bit of control, and just see what I have. And if I like it, I leave it. If I don't, I change it. But it just helps keep some of the creativity engaged. You know, with art making, a lot of the creativity is in the original idea. You know, the thing that you rush to your sketchbook to put down so you don't forget it. Mm-hmm. That's where the real creativity is happening. The creation of the thing can, in some ways, become just technical execution. You've already created the thing in your mind. You're now making it real, you know, visible for everyone else. But the really inspiring, exciting, creative bit has already happened. And so that's one of the reasons I like to embrace a little bit of chaos and unpredictability. The use of oil paint for the first time?
Initially I did not like it.
No?
No, it was so different from watercolor and it felt like I would never get the result I wanted because of that. But I think I'm liking it a lot better now.
Good. Just about anything we try has a